I spent over 30 years as a general contractor, walking through homes in every stage of construction, from the first stake in the ground to the final walkthrough with a new family. And if there's one thing that separates a home people love living in from a home people quietly resent, it's not the kitchen island or the walk-in closet. It's a set of decisions made before a single wall ever went up. Decisions about which way that house was positioned on the lot. Today, I'm walking you through 10 specific orientation mistakes that are costing American homeowners real money, real comfort, and in some cases, thousands of dollars a year, sometimes without them ever realizing why their bills are so high. Some of these you can fix. Some you need to know before you ever sign a purchase agreement or break ground on new construction. Stick with me through all 10, because by the end, you're going to look at every house you walk into completely differently. Let's start with mistake number 1, and it's the big one. Large, unshaded windows facing west with no protection whatsoever. I know I've talked about this before, but it deserves the top spot because it's the single most expensive orientation mistake I've seen in 3 decades of building. West-facing glass gets hit with low-angle afternoon sun that no roof overhang can block. And if that window is in your living room or primary bedroom, you're paying for it every single summer afternoon with your air conditioner working overtime. The fix, if you already own a home like this, is exterior shading, solar screens, or awnings. But if you're building new, the fix is simple. Keep west-facing glass small, or make sure it's protected. Mistake number 2, ignoring the long axis of the house. Here's something almost nobody outside the building trade thinks about. The most energy-efficient shape for a home in most of the United States has its long side running east to west, with the shorter ends facing north and south. Why does this matter so much? Because it minimizes how much wall and window area gets exposed to the brutal low-angle sun coming from the east and west, while maximizing the wall facing south, where you actually want the sun in winter. A huge number of production homes built in fast-growing subdivisions over the last 2 decades completely ignore this. Builders orient homes to fit as many lots as possible on a street, not to work with the sun. If you're building custom, this is a completely free change. It costs nothing extra to rotate your floor plan on the lot, and it can meaningfully cut your year-round energy costs. Mistake number 3, putting your most used rooms on the wrong side of the house. Think about which rooms you spend the most time in. For most families, that's the kitchen and the living room, the places where you're up and moving, cooking, spending afternoons and evenings. The traditional time-tested advice from builders is to place these frequently used rooms on the southern side of the house, where they get pleasant winter sun and, with the right shading, stay comfortable in summer too. Meanwhile, rooms you use less often, the garage, the laundry room, storage areas, should sit on the north side. Those less used spaces act as a buffer, soaking up cold winter air before it ever reaches the rooms where your family actually spends time. I've seen so many floor plans where the garage sits on the south side purely because that's where the driveway was easiest to pour, and the living room gets pushed to the cold north wall. That's a design decision made for construction convenience, not for the people who are going to live there for the next 20 years. Mistake number 4, not accounting for prevailing wind direction. This is one of the most overlooked factors in home orientation, and I mean overlooked by almost everybody, including plenty of builders. Every region in the country has a prevailing wind pattern, meaning the wind tends to blow from a consistent general direction most of the year. If your windows and doors are placed without considering this, you lose out on natural cross-ventilation in the summer, which means more reliance on air conditioning, and in the winter, a poorly placed window can let cold wind chill your home, even with good insulation. On the flip side, if you know your region's prevailing wind, and most local weather services or extension offices can tell you this, you can position windows and doors to catch that summer breeze and create natural airflow through the house, cutting your cooling costs without spending a dime on equipment. Mistake number 5, placing the driveway on the wrong side of the house. This sounds minor, but it isn't. Driveways and parking areas are made of asphalt or concrete, materials that absorb heat and get significantly hotter than the surrounding yard. If that heat-soaked slab sits right next to your house on the west or south side in a hot climate, that heat radiates into your home's exterior walls throughout the afternoon and evening, adding to your cooling load. In hot southern climates, placing the driveway toward the east side of the house reduces this heat buildup. In colder northern climates, it actually flips. A south or west-facing driveway melts snow and ice faster, which is a real safety and convenience benefit in the winter months. This is exactly the kind of detail that depends on where you live, and it's worth thinking through before construction rather than after. Mistake number 6. Building your patio or deck on the west side of the house. I cannot tell you how many homeowners have told me their beautiful new deck, the one they were most excited about, turned out to be nearly unusable most summer afternoons because it faces west and bakes in direct sun for hours before sunset. South-facing patios and decks generally get more usable hours of comfortable sunlight across more days of the year, especially with a bit of shade structure. West-facing outdoor spaces look great in listing photos at golden hour, but ask yourself if you actually want to sit out there at 4 o'clock on a July afternoon. If you already have a west-facing patio, a pergola, shade sail, or strategically placed trees can make a real difference in how usable that space actually is. Mistake number 7. Oversized north-facing windows in cold climates. We touched briefly on south and west windows already, but north-facing glass deserves its own mention because it's a mistake I see constantly in homes trying to maximize a view, especially homes built near mountains, lakes, or scenic backyards facing north. In colder climates, a north wall gets essentially no direct sunlight during the winter months, which means large windows there are pure heat loss, no offsetting gain. You're paying to heat your home and then losing a chunk of that heat straight through the glass all winter long. This doesn't mean you can never have a north-facing view window. It means those windows need to be higher performance, better insulated glass if they're going to be large, because they're not pulling their weight the way a south-facing window does. Mistake number 8. Failing to use landscaping strategically. This is one of the cheapest, most overlooked fixes in the entire orientation conversation, and it applies whether you're building new or fixing an existing home. Deciduous trees, the kind that lose their leaves in winter, planted on the east and south sides of a house, provide shade exactly when you need it most, during the summer, and then let sunlight back in during winter when the branches are bare. Evergreen trees, which keep their needles year-round, work best on the north and west sides in colder climates, acting as a windbreak against harsh winter winds. I've seen homeowners spend thousands on window upgrades when a couple of well-placed trees on the west side of the house would have solved most of their afternoon heat problem for a fraction of the cost, and added curb appeal at the same time. Mistake number 9. Ignoring roof orientation for future solar potential. Even if you're not installing solar panels today, this is worth thinking about, because retrofitting a roof for solar later is far more expensive and limiting than planning for it during construction. A roof ridge running east to west typically creates one large south-facing roof plane, which is the ideal orientation for solar panels in the northern hemisphere, catching the most consistent sunlight throughout the day and throughout the year. If your roofline runs the other direction, or if dormers and roof features chop up your southern exposure, you're limiting your options down the road, whether that's for solar panels, solar water heating, or simply future-proofing your home's value, since more and more buyers are asking about solar potential when they shop for a home. Mistake number 10. Buying or building a spec home plan with zero consideration for the actual lot. This last one isn't really about a single design choice, it's about the whole process going wrong from the start. A lot of production homes are built from a standard floor plan that gets stamped down onto whatever lot the builder owns, without any real thought given to which direction that specific lot faces, where the sun rises and sets relative to that particular piece of land, or which way the wind blows through that neighborhood. The same floor plan might work beautifully on one lot and terribly on the lot next door, simply because of which direction it's facing. If you're buying a home that's already built, there's not much you can do about this after the fact except apply the fixes we've talked about: shading, trees, window upgrades. But if you're building custom or working with a builder who offers any flexibility, insist on seeing how the plan is oriented on your specific lot before you sign off. And don't be afraid to ask for it to be flipped or rotated if it doesn't make sense for the sun and wind on your property. Now, let's talk about what all 10 of these mistakes have in common, because I want you to walk away from this with a clear, practical way of thinking about it, not just a list to forget by tomorrow. Every single one of these mistakes comes down to the same root cause: treating a house as a generic box that gets dropped onto a piece of land, instead of treating it as a structure that has to work in partnership with the sun, the wind, and the specific characteristics of that lot. When a home is designed with these factors in mind, from window placement to room layout to driveway position to landscaping, it works with nature instead of fighting against it every single day, all year long. And that translates directly into lower energy bills, more comfortable rooms, and less wear and tear on your heating and cooling systems, because they're not straining to compensate for bad design decisions. If you're currently house hunting, here's how to use everything we just covered. Walk the property at different times of day if you can, morning and late afternoon, and pay attention to where the sun hits hardest. Check which direction the main living areas and the primary bedroom face. Look at where the driveway sits relative to the house. Notice whether there's any mature landscaping providing shade, especially on the west side. Ask about the utility bills and compare them to similar-sized homes in the area, because a home that's fighting its orientation will almost always show it in higher-than-expected energy costs. None of this means you should walk away from a home with a few of these mistakes. Plenty of great homes have one or two orientation issues that are easily fixed with shading, trees, or window upgrades. But it does mean you'll be negotiating from a position of knowledge instead of surprise, and you won't be blindsided by a summer electric bill that makes you regret the purchase. And if you're building new, you are in the best possible position, because every single mistake on this list is either completely free to avoid or costs very little extra at the design stage compared to what it costs to fix later. Talk to your builder specifically about orientation. Ask how the floor plan is positioned relative to true south. Ask about window sizing on each side of the house. Ask about driveway placement, patio placement, and whether the design accounts for your local prevailing wind. These are reasonable questions, and any builder who takes their craft seriously should be able to answer them, or at least be willing to sit down and work through them with you. I want to leave you with one last thought. A house is going to sit on its lot facing the same direction for the next 50, 70, maybe 100 years. The decisions made about orientation in the first few weeks of planning will affect every single season you live in that home. Every heating bill, every cooling bill, every afternoon spent in a room that's either comfortable or unbearable. It's one of those things that's invisible until you know to look for it. And once you know, you can never walk into a house again without noticing which way it's facing and what that means for the people living inside. If this helped you see your own home or your next home search in a new light, that's exactly why I put this together. Take a walk around your own house today. Notice where the sun hits, notice where it doesn't, and start thinking about which of these 10 mistakes might be quietly costing you money right now. Small changes, a tree in the right spot, a screen on the right window, can make a real difference. And if you're planning to build, use this list as a conversation starter with your builder, because getting this right from day one is one of the smartest investments you can make in a home you're going to live in for decades.